There were cold nights, chapped lips, and sore feet. These troubles hindered many slaves across the southern hell. Well, that's what I heard around this makeshift piece of cow pie they call a town. More like a pile of weeds with rolls of linen on them. Growing up 4 years in this dusty little path of houses has been pretty normal for a boy with low standards. I had clean clothes, a little grub to keep me going during the day, and a pitchforks full of hay with an Afghan to sleep. But they were just fooling me. One day after my 4th birthday, I had got taken in the line of other blacks chained toe to hand, faces of sorrow and anxiousness. "Get in line, you dirty little nigger," ordered a white man wearing some itchy rags. I had heard the word before, but I just couldn't comply. I fussed at the cretin with every ounce of my wickedness, but to no avail. They just chained me up and sent me in line. Mama told me that 54 years ago, a white man named Eli Whitney made an evil contraption that separated the cotton seeds from the cotton, making it faster and easier than by hand. This also meant that all the white devils needed hands to pick up all that southern gold. This is where the slaves came in. I'm 3 steps to the stage and podium. Only one more person in front. "We have a nice specimen here. No diseases. Great shape. Even he knows how to add. That'll help when he's picking my cotton," exclaimed the wisecracking potbelly. Snickers spread throughout the hall. After him was me. I stepped up to this box. "We've got a young one here." "I mean, he doesn't know who's boss," joked the same potbelly. "Can I say $500? I say $500. Complete silence. Then out of nowhere, a nervous-looking man stood and said, "I'll take him for $1,500. The entire room was silent. That's how I met Master Reynolds. The next 10 years went by like nothing. Master Reynolds treated me the best he could, when none of his business partners were around. He'd even let me sit at the dinner table. See, Master Reynolds was a cotton goods manufacturer. He made shirts, jackets, blouses, and even the occasional tablecloth. But his business partners were mean old men. When I was serving them up drinks on Sundays, they would always flick their hot cigars at me, burning my skin. Other than that, I did most things that kids would do, with the exception of picking cotton from the late morning to the middle of the afternoon. I can genuinely say that I loved my master, but that my joy was short-lived. A few days after my 14th birthday, Master Reynolds ran into town to restock all of our supplies, but he was gone for hours. He didn't come back until late evening. When he did return, a southern woman followed suit behind him. I knew that I didn't like the look of the woman when I saw her. It didn't matter, though. She would be my mistress soon enough. This lady was badder than the wolves I read about in the books that Master Reynolds gave me. She yelled and screamed like a witch and was never polite enough to thank me for doing anything. After a while, she just punished me for no reason. This all led up to the worst experience of my life. See, it was a perfect spring day. Warm but not too hot. Moist but not too wet. I started my normal routine of doing the laundry, scrubbing the tables, and helping the other slave ladies make breakfast for Master Reynolds and his wife. Then the streak of pure evil cried out from the hag. "What has happened to my corset?" she cried. "Who did this?" I ran towards the laundry area and saw what happened. When I ran to her, I wish I hadn't. While I was scrubbing the corset she was wearing, I had torn some small holes. She called for Master Reynolds, telling him to grab a whip, one thing I know he did not own. She grabbed me by the arm and slammed me down, telling me to shut up and stay down. When the master finally arrived at the incident, he didn't know what to do because he had never done it before. "Well, aren't you going to do something?" she asked. Because of this, the mistress' intense stare, Master Reynolds picked me up and carried me away. I could see it in his eyes that he didn't want to punish me. He sat me down in the room and that he sat away from me and told me to wait. All I heard was heavy footsteps like elephants in the hallway. Suddenly, 3 white men came up through the door and snatched me up like a sack of potatoes. I squirmed and kicked and struggling to loosen the grip of the cold, meaty hands. They just threw me in the front yard and one man pulled out a whip. From the look of the mistress's eyes, I could tell that she had told these men to come. They surrounded me like an animal, caging me until I no longer had space to see. But through an act of pure heroism, Master Reynolds threw his body at the leader of the small clan, incapacitating him, both him and himself. He crawled to his feet with both hands carrying the large suitcases. He threw one towards me in the air, impacting my chest with a thud. I rushed to the side, ready to flee. Throughout my life, I had never seen a white man fight for a black slave with so much courage and bravery. We dashed towards the borders of my master's land, not stopping to look back. We were long gone. There were a few weeks of wandering around and depleting all our master's Reynolds money. We were raced by a young girl that told us of a thing called the Underground Railroad. It wasn't like a train, but more of a safe passage for escaping slaves and masters looking to get away. We stopped at many houses on our way to the free North. They were surprised when they saw my master. They ain't never seen a white man running. Finally, after 3 months of jumping house to house, we made it to New York. Master Reynolds got a job at the Times, and we lived in a small apartment just down the road from his building. I went to school where I was surprised to see other blacks just taking company with the white kids. I realized that this was a place I belonged. Years later, I realized that I really didn't actually want to be there. It was boring. People always talked about the same thing, fighting for slavery. But I actually wanted to do it. I heard that President Lincoln had just signed the Emancipation Proclamation, documented that stated that all slaves were now free. I saw this as an opportunity to join the infantry and fight for my country, fighting for actual slaves. I did many hours of training. I worked real hard to become a soldier, and I was trained the same way every man in that army was trained. I lost, won, and conquered in all 3 years' time. After my training, I was deployed to a place called Chaffin's Farm in Virginia. We were ordered to fight upwards to the city and not to stop. Some call it suicide. Others said impossible. I guess we'll find out. Sincerely,